Hi, and welcome to another episode of Mr. Bench's Book Reviews. What's in the box today? It is. Oh, so I should probably close the box, otherwise it might come open. Well, be open, but would be open if I didn't close it. I guess it can only come open if I do close it. Anyway, I've done that. In the box today, we have this lovely thing. It's called The Time Traveling Sandwich Bites Back by Matt Brown, and it also says Compton Vallance on it. So I guess that's maybe the name of the series. Maybe it's in from the Compton Vallance series. Not heard of these, so we'll see how we get on. Um, okay, Alfie age 10 says it's awesomely crazy. This is pretty long, so I'm obviously not going to read the whole thing today, but we'll see how we get on, and I'll stop maybe on a cliffhanger, or maybe just after something has been resolved. Oh, it's illustrated by Lizzie Finlay. There seem to be quite a few illustrations. I was hoping to a random page. Look, there's an illustration of a boy saying hello. And also some of the actual writing is almost illustrated. Lots of variety amongst the fonts, the odd speech bubble, uh, increased spacing between characters, meaning written characters, typed characters, not characters of the book. So here we go. If it is from a series, I hope we can keep up. Hope you don't need to have read all the previous Compton Valances to know what's going on. But otherwise, I will not know what's going on because I haven't read all the other Compton Valances. Okay, let's go. Introducing Compton Valance, his friends, and his family. Okay, so if you haven't read them before, uh, then they introduce them to here. There's Compton Valance. There's an arrow pointing. Oh, there's a star, there's an asterisk, and a footnote. Quite like footnotes. So it says Compton Valance, and then it says, I know what you're thinking. Compton Vallance isn't a real name. It's one of those made up names that sounds a bit funny. Some people tell you all names are made up, like Nugget McDo or Basil Burger, but actually it is a real name, and it's the name of our main character, and I'm going to tell you why. Well, I'm not, because that would take up a whole extra book, but I'm going to tell you how to say it. So after three, say with me, one, two, three, Compton Valance. You've got it. Okay, so you seem to pronounce the third syllable, so it's Valance, apparently. Valance. Not sure. I mean, they've not used the International Phonetic Alphabet here. They've just written it in capital letters, and they've written VAAL. I guess that's Val. Val. Valance. Hard to say, really. That's almost confusing more than if I hadn't had it. You've got it, it says there. Then there's Brian Nyland, Compton's best friend ever. He really likes custard. There's Bravo Valance, whose horribly older brother. Horribly horrible older brother. Horrible. Well, it's clearly from the point of view of Compton then, because I'm older than Compton. And I guess it's Compton's point of view that he's horribly horrible as well. You've got Mr. and Mrs. Valance, that's mum and dad. You've got Samuel Nathaniel Daniels. Those are three names that have EL in them. A top secret agent from the future. That's exciting. He's interesting. He's mustachioed and has a very small hat, a bit like a Mr. Man. A bit like Mr. Strong or someone. The commissioner. She is the most hugely important person in the Future Perfect unit. I don't know what that is. That'll probably be introduced to us. Also, a few flies buzzing around. I don't know if the implication is that the Vallance family do not shower as often as they should do, and that they smell. Or maybe the flies, the narrators, they're sort of like the fly on the wall, observing the action. That's also possible. Anyway, so that's Compton, his friends and family. And we've also been given a pointer as to how to pronounce his name. Chapter 1. Oh, it's in chapters, which is always useful. So maybe I'll stop at the end of a chapter. Unless they don't stop at an appropriate point for me. How Compton Vallance. I don't really like pronouncing it like that. I quite want to just call him Vallance. But you should, if he's gone to the effort of telling me how to pronounce his name, I should respond in kind with the effort of attempting to pronounce it in that way. That's kind of my attitude. So how Compton Vallance became the most powerful boy in the universe. They've capitalized that actually, so I should have probably yelled it, but I'm not going to go back and do that now. 1. I'm not sure why there's a 1 there. This is chapter 1 and has the title, and then there's kind of like a rectangle with a 1 written on it, so it's the first. Okay, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's almost like steps or instructions, except it's telling you what's happened. Anyway, because they're kind of subsections of chapter 1. Anyway, so 1 is one day, one very ordinary boy. The one day and the one very, they're not one, they're just the words 1 within subsection 1. Chapter 1, 1, and then the first word is 1. And also the third word is 1. So we are, chapter 1, 1. One day, one very ordinary boy. This is probably Compton Vallance, not a very ordinary name. Took one very ordinary cheese and pickled egg sandwich to school for his packed lunch. Cheese and pickle sandwiches are ordinary. I'm not that familiar with cheese and pickled egg sandwiches. So maybe it's only very ordinary. Maybe the reference class is other cheese and pickled egg sandwiches rather than other sandwiches. Because pickled egg, I think, is quite unusual. For his packed lunch. 2. Yeah, and then here you see you've got a box with a 2 and a box with a 3. So they're kind of in these kind of boxes. But Compton, now I didn't tell you it was Compton in 1, but it was kind of obvious. But Compton forgot about the ordinary cheese and pickled egg sandwich in his lunchbox and let it go all mouldy and ouldy and stinky at the bottom of his school bag for 3 weeks. 3. Then, when the stink stunk so stinkily that Compton thought his hooter might shrivel up in shock. His hooter? You probably couldn't think of a word for nose that started with sh, because shrivel up in shock seems to be a deliberate alliteration. There is a word though, I think you can call it a schnauzer or something. Or something like that. Possibly Yiddish. The German word schnauzer means, can be used to mean like nose. Or it's related, it's a cognate of the English word snout. Anyway, he thought his hooter might shrivel up in shock. And then he and his best friend, Brian Nylan, he was introduced to us earlier, I think. Was he introduced as his best friend? Yes. Decided to conduct an experiment and place the sandwich in a shoebox at the back of Compton's wardrobe for another 10 weeks. So that's 13 weeks in all. And there's a picture of the shoebox and it says do not open for 10 weeks. So it's a bit like a time capsule. We might say do not open until the year 2000 if you were burying it before then. There's a footnote. The sandwich was so stinky that when handling it, Compton and Brian had to wear the fail-safe protective clothing of dressing gowns on backwards, gardening gloves, and swimming goggles. So they basically dressed up in play hazmat attire. And then it says, when you see an asterisk, you usually need to look at the bottom of the page. Go ahead, look below. Okay, so in case you hadn't realised that those were footnotes. I mean, they're not with 1s and 2s, they're with asterisks, so we'll see if there's sometimes more than one on a page. Because they haven't explained here that sometimes it goes asterisk or double asterisk. Sometimes you see things like asterisk or some sort of sequence, like an asterisk and then a cross, I think. But we'll see. Maybe there's only ever one per page. Then we're up to 4. After the sandwich had sweated and stenched for 10 weeks, Compton and Brian took it out of the shoebox. The sandwich was now a disgustingly hideous green colour, and it's British spelling, by the way, on colour, so this may be British originally. The sandwich was now a disgustingly hideous green colour. By the way, they're writing some words like sweated and stenched and hideous in slightly intense font, so it kind of, when I'm emphasizing a word like that, it's normally because it's been picked out here deliberately. And on closer inspection, it looked both slimy and a bit cat-sicky. while the inside was all browny, sludgy, and gooey. Yum, that's a sarcastic yum, obviously. The whiff was also so bad that it smelled like a herd of rhinos farting in Compton and Brian's faces. Hmm. Okay, that's disgusting. 5. In the name of science, Compton and Brian popped a small piece of the disgusting sandwich in their mouths and swallowed. And to their surprise, they discovered that their moldy-oldy sandwich had turned into a fizzing, whizzing time machine. Well, it's quite surprising. I wasn't expecting that. 6. Giving them the power to travel backwards through time and making them the most powerful boys in the universe. Well, sort of. And there's an asterisk there, but there isn't a footnote. Oh, the footnote's on the next page. Well, that's confusing because that's the very first footnote after telling us that you need to look at the bottom of the page, and then it's on the next page. They could have alerted us to the fact that sometimes the footnotes are on the next page if there isn't room at the bottom of the page. Sort of a bit of a dummy with that footnote. So star footnote, well, sort of. A warning about making time machine sandwiches. It is vitally important to use very strong English cheddar and a homemade pickled egg. I guess they mean a home pickled egg. Homemade pickled egg in order to attain full time travel sandwich capabilities. In 2034, a French scientist called Henri Tromper attempted to create a time machine sandwich using brie, raw onions, and pickled frog's legs. The results were so. I don't know when these are set. If that's in 2034, which is in the future as I record this at least. In 2034, a French, or maybe it's a joke because it's about time traveling. The results were so catastrophic that Tromper and his laboratory were immediately shut down, and Tromper and 2 other scientists were confined to the toilet for the next 18 years. Okay, but they don't really say in what way they were catastrophic. Oh, there's another footnote. Oh, and they have used 2 stars on this one, so they footnoted the footnote here. These 2 other scientists, I guess those are scientists who worked on the sandwich rather than just 2 random scientists. Another warning. Sorry, one pause. Hi, sorry about that brief pause. Yes, they footnoted the footnote, and it says another warning. Actually, it's probably best you don't try any of this at home. Only attempt to create a time machine within the appropriate TimeVac 3000 mobile laboratory. Okay, I don't know what that is. Chapter 2. Oh, if the chapters are that short, we can probably manage at least one more. An embarrassing incident involving baked beans and a very important person indeed. Becoming the most powerful boy in the universe wasn't quite as much fun as Compton Vallance had imagined. He's standing with some sort of superhero cape on top of the world there, so he seems to have become enormous. Or maybe this is just how he feels. He feels like he's on top of the world. The one massive drawback with the whole time machine experience seemed to be that no sooner did you acquire the ability to travel backwards and forwards through time, they've written the word backwards, but I managed to read it, then it was cruelly snatched away from you. One day you're burping your way through history, accidentally wiping out the dinosaurs using a packet of custard creams. That's prehistory, actually, the dinosaurs. They're actually not part of history because they were around before the invention of writing. Or even like oral history. Turning your dad into a woman and creating a parallel universe where your best friend Brian Nyland either hates you or manages to invent a pair of custard socks. ... Okay, because that was one day you're doing all that. But then the next day, your horrible older brother Bravo, whom I believe we were introduced to earlier, yes, we were, steals your time machine sandwich, turning you back into just another 10-year-old boy standing in a room with your best friend and a man in a tight silver suit from the 27th century. There's another footnote that points you to the next. Oh, well, it says it here, look across for this one, but they didn't tell us that last time. This man is Samuel Nathaniel Daniels, a government agent from the future whose job it was to destroy the sandwich before it got into the wrong hands, Bravo's. He didn't get the job done. Bravo got the sandwich. I can't believe it's gone, said Compton sadly. We only had the time machine sandwich for a day. One lousy, stinking day. Well, it was a stinking day because the sandwich was very smelly, as we were told. He sat down heavily on his bed. Until about 5 minutes ago, today was going to be the best 10th birthday in the whole history of the world, Compton said with a weary sigh. Now, though, it's turning into the worst ever day ever. Okay. And he would know because he's been time traveling. So he knows about all the days ever, I guess. It's kind of weird in that, well, to begin with, he said they had the power to travel backwards through time, but they've clearly been going forwards as well. I mean, it said it there. And these French time machine people were clearly from the future, as is Samuel Nathaniel Daniels. But what I don't quite understand is why his being able to travel through time also gives him these other powers, such as being able to destroy dinosaurs and inventing custard socks. It's not made quite clear. Maybe that will be made clearer later. What? Said Brian. Even worse than that time when your dad woke you up while you were standing in the kitchen, weeing into your school bag? Yuck. Because you dreamed it was a toilet? Compton gave Brian a steely glare. He did not like being reminded of that terrible evening, or the night of 1,000 wheeze, as it had quickly become known within the Vallance family. They don't say how old he was there, but I mean, if he's 10 now, it's quite common for young children to wee in the night. After finding out about Compton weeing in his school bag, it had taken Compton's brother Bravo precisely 30 seconds to come up with the nickname Compton Wee Wee. 30 seconds is quite long for that. 10 minutes later, that nickname became Comp Wee Wee Wee, then Wee 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 Wee, which was soon shortened to Wee Wee, then Wee Bum, Bum Bum, Bum Face Wee Wee, and finally Dr. Piddlepants. Well, that's quite a good final nickname, I suppose. Although he's not piddled in his pants, that's kind of the problem. I mean, I'm not saying it's good to piddle in your pants, but it's probably better to piddle in your pants than into your school bag, which is probably harder to clean and may have paper-based material such as books, which could suffer permanent damage from being urinated on, whereas a bed sheet or a pair of underpants is quite easy to wash. Compton shuddered at the memory. How could we have been so stupid, he said, changing the subject back to the stolen time machine sandwich. I know, said Brian, taking a piece of paper out of his pocket and thrusting it under Compton's nose. I'd written out, are we just not going to have any more time traveling? Was that was just like some weird thing in like the first chapter? No, let's see. I'd written out this whole list of things we were going to do when we travelled back in time, and we only managed to do the first one. And there's a footnote. The things on Brian's to-do list were, well, you don't really need to put that as a footnote. It's at the bottom of the page anyway, and they've written it on a kind of list. I think that's a bit of an unnecessary footnote. Could just shown the list as an illustration. Anyway, 1 is go back to the time of the dinosaurs. 2 is capture a saber-toothed tiger and keep it as a pet. If can't find a saber-toothed tiger, a woolly mammoth will do. Okay. 3 is go back to last week so I can take spelling test again and get the answers all right for once. 4 is take a worm and a calculator back to the beginning of time and leave them in a box. See if I can create a new breed of superworm. I guess the idea if it's already evolved to the state of current worm at the beginning of time, then it will evolve further, but presumably it wouldn't be adapted at all to its environment at the beginning of time because the environment was very different at the beginning of time, so it could just go extinct and not evolve further. So I think that is not a very good idea. I don't know why it needs the calculator for that. 5 is go back 3 days to chess club and not call Mrs. Zemeckis mummy. I guess the idea is people accidentally call their teachers or chess club supervisors mummy, and then they get laughed at by their peers. Outside Compton's bedroom window, it was raining over Little Hadron. I guess that's where they live. And the entire sky was dark grey. It perfectly matched Compton and Brian's mood. Well, that's kind of funny because there's a thing called a pathetic fallacy where it often rains when people are in a bad mood, or if there's a sad scene, then it starts to rain. But here he's literally written in it perfectly matched their mood because it probably expects his readers to not just get that that's a literary device. So he's just explained it for them, which is nice. It's fine. As the boys sat glumly on Compton's bed, Samuel Nathaniel Daniels paced nervously around the room, looking at his, well, it says watch, but it's W-A-T, well, it's W-A-T-C-H. So the C-H has a dot after it. Maybe he's from the future when C-H has become basically a letter, a bit like the I-J in Dutch. I think that's right. That's a wrist-activated time changer. So the W is the wrist, A is activated, T is time, and CH is changer. Invented in 2589 to allow the wearer to travel forwards or backwards in time to any point or place. As they don't need sandwiches in the future. The commissioner's not going to like this, he said. Who's the commissioner? Asked Brian. Who's the commissioner? Only the most hugely important person in the whole of the FPU. Footnote. FPU stands for Future Perfect Unit, which is the 27th century government time travel department that Samuel Nathaniel Daniels works for. Samuel Nathaniel Daniels sighed. Sigh. It was all supposed to be so simple, he said. All I had to do was come back to the 21st century, set up a top secret observation unit in the house over the road to monitor your activity, wait until you used the time machine sandwich, come over and introduce myself, grab the sandwich, travel forward in time by 650 years, fill out form 1999, take the form to Len in disposal, quarantine the sandwich, fill out form 1895 in duplicate, and make sure to send one to Wendy over in Sector ZX81, retrieve the sandwich from quarantine, isolate the sandwich in perma-ice, put it in a hypercrate, put the hypercrate onto a Mars seeker, and then sit back while the Mars seeker traveled 34 million miles to Mars, where it would bury itself in a hole 15 meters down and set itself on fire, completely destroying the time machine sandwich forever. Samuel Nathaniel Downs shook his head. It was meant to be straightforward. It's a joke, right? It sounds like a very complicated process with a lot of bureaucracy, filling out forms, and working with different governmental departments. And then again, ending up sending the sandwich to Mars. And then they say it's straightforward. That's just fairly straightforward humor. Ordinary, regular as clockwork, rogue time travel equipment disposal. Yeah, ordinary, said Brian, nudging Compton. So Brian thinks that's not very ordinary. But now, thanks to your brother, Samuel Nathaniel Daniels went on, I'm in trouble deeper than a deep well that's so deep it has to have a sign saying, really deep well, put up next to it. Okay. I'll keep going. Will I? Or maybe I'll stop there. I think we've got a good feel for the book. It reads quite well, quite easily. Some illustrations are right. I mean, it's not an absolute laugh riot. I mean, I do quite like the use of footnotes and stuff, but like some of them haven't been as hilarious as they could have been. I mean, there was stuff about farting at the start, and I thought it was going to be more about this kind of, smelly, what did we call them? Bodily fluids and gases sort of humor. I mean, there may be more of that later. But at the moment, a lot of it is just a bit confusing, and like I think they glossed over the actual time traveling a bit. You could have put in a page or two showing them actually time traveling, going ooh, and then actually going back to the dinosaurs and explained a bit how they did the whole custard creams thing and the mustardy socks. I think that was skipped a bit too quickly for my liking. Kind of takes away some of the astonishing nature of it. I mean, now you've got time traveling Nathaniel, Daniel, who for whom time traveling seems to be a very banal experience, which I don't think it is, or at least it shouldn't be for Compton and his friend. For them, it should be a very new, exciting experience. But yeah, quite good. I mean, I wouldn't mind reading on a bit further. It could get a bit funnier. I mean, I think I quite like the idea in some ways. And like the French scientists being locked in a toilet, I guess is moderately amusing. Um, oh, I didn't get onto the baked bean incident that was mentioned in the chapter title, but never mind. I don't think I'm really the target audience for this one, I must say. I think this is more for kids to read on their own, and I'm more the sort of person who reads a book with a child. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not disparaging it. I think it may pick up, and you can probably read it quite quickly. It's very big font, and the use of these illustrations and the way they use like these speech bubbles, that I was showing you. You can read through it quite quickly. I would just hope that it gets a bit more kind of gripping and interesting, and some of the characters, well, they could use a bit more development, but I expect that will come. So I say thumbs up to Matt Brown. You've done well, and the illustrator. Just give them a shout out, Lizzie Finlay. And do join me again next time for another of Mr. Bench's book reviews. Bye.